What's it like to have words trapped in your throat? To know exactly what you need to say, but feel your mouth betray you? To hear the frustration in people's voices when you can't get the sentence out? Corporal James Mitchell knew. He lived with a stutter for 24 years. The Army had been his escape. Radio operations seemed perfect. Clear procedures, standardized language, scripts to follow. But even with scripts, stress made the stutter worse. So they kept him off the important communications, the ones where speed and clarity meant survival. Mitchell accepted it. Better to be invisible than to fail when it mattered. Then came the night when Forward Sangin's communication center took a direct mortar hit. Every experienced operator was casualties, and Mitchell became the only person who could talk 100 Marines through a kill zone. The same voice that had failed him in school, in conversations, in life, would have to work perfectly under the worst pressure imaginable. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to Acts of Veterans, so you never miss these true tales of courage, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today? James Mitchell's stutter started when he was 6 years old. One day he spoke normally. The next, words began catching in his throat like fish on a hook. His parents tried everything. Speech therapy, breathing exercises, specialists who promised techniques that would help. Some things worked temporarily. Most didn't. By high school, Mitchell had developed coping mechanisms, avoiding certain words, preparing sentences in advance, staying quiet when he could. But the stutter never left, and neither did the shame that came with it. College was hard. Presentations were torture. Phone calls were anxiety-inducing. Job interviews felt like walking through a minefield where any word could explode into stuttering. Repetition. When Mitchell enlisted in the Army at 22, he saw it as a fresh start. The military had structure, procedures, clear communication protocols. Maybe, he thought, in an environment with standardized language, his stutter wouldn't matter as much. He chose the 5C radio operator, maintainer, the Moss seat. Perfect, technical, procedural. He'd be behind equipment, following scripts, using military phonetics and standard terminology. Basic training was manageable. The drill sergeants yelled at everyone equally. His stutter barely registered among all the other chaos. Advanced individual training was harder. Radio communications required speed and clarity under stress scenarios. Mitchell's stutter emerged. FF Foxtrot, Foxtrot 3, W8, Wait 1, his. Instructors noticed. They weren't cruel about it, just practical. Mitchell, you've got excellent technical knowledge, his primary instructor said after one particularly rough simulation. You understand radio systems better than half the class, but tactical communications requires speed under fire. Hesitation gets people killed. I understand, Sergeant. We're not washing you out, but I'm flagging your file. You'll be assigned to administrative communications, weather reports, logistics, supply coordination, important work, but lower stress. Mitchell graduated 8 with a notation in his record, not recommended for tactical nets during high-stress operations. He arrived at Forward Operating Base Sangin in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. As part of the communications platoon, the base sat in a volatile region, surrounded by Taliban-controlled territory. The communications center was the heart of the base, a hardened structure with multiple radio systems, satellite links, and encrypted networks. 12 radio operators worked rotating shifts, maintaining contact with patrols, coordinating air support, and managing the constant flow of information that kept everyone alive. Staff Sergeant Marcus Cole ran the communications platoon. He reviewed Mitchell's file before his arrival. Mitchell, you're on administrative nets, Cole said during their first meeting. Weather reports at 0600 and 1800. Supply coordination with Bagram, routine traffic. You good with that? Why, yes. Sergeant, I'm not trying to sideline you, but tactical communications are fast. If you're handling a call for fire and you hesitate, someone dies. You understand. Mitchell understood completely. He'd been having this conversation his whole life. For 2 years, he worked the administrative nets. He was good at it, meticulous, never missed a scheduled transmission. His weather reports were perfectly formatted. His supply coordination was flawless. The other radio operators respected his technical knowledge. When equipment malfunctioned, Mitchell could diagnose and repair it faster than anyone. He understood the systems intimately. But when tactical operations were running, when patrols were in contact, when lives hung on clear, Fast communication. Mitchell sat at the administrative console and listened to the other operators. Handle it. Sergeant First Class Dave Richardson was the primary tactical operator. Calm under pressure. Fast. Clear. Mitchell listened to him work and felt a mixture of admiration and inadequacy. Richardson made it look easy. Hawk to 7, this is Sangin talk. Roger your Citrop. Air support inbound, ETA 12 minutes. Hold your position, confirm copy. No hesitation, no stumbling, just pure, professional communication. Mitchell knew he could never do that. His stutter would emerge under that kind of pressure. He'd freeze. He'd fail. Better to stay in his lane. The attack came on October 14th at 2,142 hours. Mitchell was on duty in the communication center, handling evening weather upgrades when the first mortar round hit. The explosion wasn't close to the communications building. It struck the motor pool, sending flames and shrapnel skyward. The alarm shrieked instantly. Contact. Incoming mortars. Someone shouted. Mitchell stayed at his console, listening as the tactical operators shifted into high gear. Richardson was already coordinating defensive responses, calling out to units across the base. Then the second volley hit. This time, the mortars were closer, more accurate. The enemy had adjusted their aim. One round hit the communications building directly. The explosion was catastrophic. The roof partially collapsed. Equipment sparked and died. The lights went out, replaced by emergency reds. Mitchell was thrown from his chair. His ears rang. Smoke filled the room. When the dust settled, he realized he was the only one still conscious. Richardson was down, bleeding from the head, not moving. Two other operators were buried under debris. One was screaming. The other was silent. Mitchell's console had been shielded by a support beam. His equipment, miraculously, was still functioning, but everything else was chaos. His headset crackled. A voice, panicked. Breaking up. Sangin talk. This is patrol, under heavy. Say again. Taking casualties. Mitchell grabbed his headset with shaking hands. This is S. Sangin talk. Say again your traffic. The voice came back, clearer now, but desperate. Sangin talk. This is Reaper 2-6. We are under heavy attack. 200 Marines in the Sangin Valley. Multiple casualties. We need medevac, air support. QRF everything you've got. We're being overrun. Mitchell's blood went cold. 200 Marines under attack, and he was the only operator left functional. He looked around the destroyed communications center. Richardson was unconscious. The others were casualties. The backup systems were damaged. He was alone. The voice on the radio came again, more desperate. Sangin talked. Do you copy? We are in contact. Heavy casualties, requesting immediate support. Mitchell's stutter surged. His throat tightened. The words he needed were there, but his mouth wouldn't cooperate. He tried to respond. Nothing came out. The Marine on the other, it was dying. 200 Marines were dying, and Mitchell couldn't speak. Everything he'd feared his entire life was happening. The moment when his stutter would cost lives. He tried again. Our Reaper T2. It wasn't working. He was failing, just like he'd always known he would. Then, through the smoke and chaos, Mitchell heard Richardson's voice, weak, barely conscious. Mitchell, breathe, slow down. You can do this. Mitchell looked at Richardson. Blood streamed down the sergeant's face, but his eyes were open, focused. You know, the procedures, just follow them. One word at a time. Mitchell closed his eyes, took a breath, and remembered something his speech therapist had told him years ago. When you stutter, you're trying to force the words out. Stop forcing. Let them flow. One word. One breath. Trust yourself. He keyed the mic again. Slower this time. Deliberate. Reaper 2-6. Pause. Breathe. This is Sangin talk. Pause. Breathe. I copy your traffic. The words came out. Clear. No stutter. The Marine's response was immediate. Sangin talk. Thank God. We're grid for 27931. 200 Marines. Under coordinated attack from 3 sides. We have 15 urgent casualties. We need everything you can send. Now, Mitchell's mind shifted into a mode he'd never accessed before. He wasn't thinking about his stutter. He was thinking about procedures, systems, the training he'd absorbed for 2 years. He pulled up the tactical map, located the grid coordinates, saw the patrol's position, Reaper 2-6. Copy your grid. Standby. He switched frequencies. Called the Quick Reaction Force, QRF. This is Sangin talk. Emergency tasking. Pause. Breathe. Let the words flow. 200 Marines under attack. Grid for 27931. Require immediate deployment. The QRF commander responded instantly. TOC. This is QRF actual. Roger. Spinning up now. ETA 20 minutes. Mitchell switched frequencies again. Air support. Hammer to 1. This is Sangin talk. Troops in. Contact. 200 Marines. Grid for 27931. Request immediate air support. Sangin talk. Hammer to 1. Roger. Inbound. ETA 15 minutes. One by one, Mitchell coordinated every asset the base had. Medevac helicopters. Artillery support. Additional ground units. His voice stayed calm. Clear. No stutter. Not because the stutter was gone, it was still there, waiting to emerge, but because Mitchell wasn't fighting it anymore. He was letting each word come, one breath at a time. Reaper 2-6 came back on the net. Sangin talk. We're taking heavy fire from the North Ridge. Can you get artillery on that position? Mitchell pulled up the fire support net. Steel rain. This is Sangin talk. Fire mission. Grid for 28935. Enemy concentration. 200 friendlies at grid for 27931. Danger close. The artillery officer responded. Talk. Confirm danger close. That's within 500 meters of friendly position. Mitchell didn't hesitate. Confirm. Friendlies are taking casualties. Execute fire mission. Roger. Shot out. 30 seconds later, the artillery shells landed. The radio crackled with Reaper 2-6's voice. Sangin talk. Good effect. The North Ridge is suppressed. We're moving wounded to LZ. For the next 40 minutes, Mitchell became the voice that held everything together. He coordinated airstrikes, adjusted artillery, guided medevac helicopters to landing zones, relayed intelligence, managed 6 different radio nets simultaneously. His console was surrounded by the wreckage of the communications center. Richardson had been evacuated. The other operators were casualties. Mitchell was alone with 6 radios, a tactical map, and 200 lives depending on his voice. And his voice worked. Not perfectly, not without effort, but clearly enough. One word, one breath, one transmission at a time. When the Quick Reaction Force arrived and linked up with Reaper Patrol, when the medevac helicopters extracted all the wounded, when the enemy finally withdrew, Mitchell sat back in his chair, hands shaking, throat raw from talking nonstop for 40 minutes. Staff Sergeant Cole burst into the damaged communication center, his face pale. Mitchell, what the hell happened here? Mitchell looked around at the destruction, at the equipment that had somehow stayed functional, at the empty chairs where his fellow operators should have been. Everyone else, see casualties. Sergeant, I handled the nets. Cole stared at him. You handled the nets, alone. During the largest coordinated attack we've seen in 6 months. Why, yes. Sergeant. Cole's expression shifted from shock to something else. Respect. Mitchell, I listened to the recordings. You coordinated 6 nets, managed their support, artillery, medevac, QRF. Your communications were flawless. Mitchell shook his head, and not flawless. Sergeant, I stuttered a few times. I didn't hear a single stutter that mattered. I heard a profession. Our radio operator saving to 100 Marines. The after-action review took place 3 days later. The battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Andrea Hayes, convened the meeting in the operations center. Mitchell stood at attention, still processing everything that had happened. Colonel Hayes looked at him for a long moment. Corporal Mitchell, I've reviewed the communications recordings from October 14th. I've also reviewed your service record, specifically the notation that you were not recommended for tactical nets. Mitchell's stomach tightened. Yes, ma'am, that notation was wrong. Mitchell blinked. Ma'am, you coordinated a complex, multi-asset response under extreme pressure. Your communications were clear, precise, and professional. You saved 100 Marines. She paused. The only reason you were ever kept off tactical nets was because people assumed your stutter would be a problem under stress. They were wrong. You proved that when it mattered most. Colonel Hayes held up a document. I'm removing the notation from your file. Effective immediately, you're cleared for all tactical communications. Additionally, you're being recommended for the Army Commendation Medal. Mitchell couldn't speak, not because of his stutter, because he didn't have words. Staff Sergeant Cole stepped forward. "Mom, if I may, I'd like Mitchell as my primary tactical operator." "He's earned it." Hayes nodded, approved. In the months that followed, Corporal James Mitchell became the lead tactical radio operator at FOB Sangin. His stutter didn't disappear. It was still there, on bad days, stress days. It emerged. But Mitchell had learned something crucial that night in October. The stutter didn't define his capability. His ability to work through it did. Young radio operators arriving at Sangin heard the story. The operator, who'd been sidelined for years because of a stutter, who coordinated the largest rescue operation in the base's history using the voice everyone said would fail. One private, fresh out of training, approached Mitchell nervously. "Corporal, I stutter too. They almost didn't let me into radio operations. Do you think I can make it?" "Make it?" Mitchell looked at him, saw himself 2 years earlier, scared, doubting. "Why you'll make it," Mitchell said, not despite the stutter, through it, one word at a time. The private nodded, encouraged, because sometimes the voice you don't trust is exactly the one that saves everyone, and the weakness you spend your life hiding becomes the strength that proves you are always enough. Moral, the obstacles we carry don't disqualify us from greatness. They teach us perseverance others never learn. Your perceived weakness might be the exact thing that prepares you for your defining moment. Trust yourself. One word, one breath, one step at a time. If this story moved you, don't forget to show your support. Subscribe to Acts of Veterans for more true tales of courage, sacrifice, and honor. Stories that remind us of the quiet strength carried by those who serve. Tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love seeing how far these stories reach. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never forget the heroes among us.